the China threat. And George, why don't you kind of kick us off talking about some of the nation state activity that you and your team were following this year or
Yeah,
last year?
thanks, Laurie. Yeah, we've been tracking a number of Chinese nexus threats this year. There's been some very serious intrusions discovered that have been attributed to China as a nation state operator. That does include the US telecommunications backbone used by many telecommunications companies, including AT&T. There's been a lot of questions about how long the dwell time of that intrusion has been there. There's also been a significant amount of supply chain compromise, again attributed to China APTs. That does include just at the end of last year the Beyond Trust breach, which led to the breach of the US Treasury as well. About this time last year, there was a spate of exploitation of Idanti vulnerabilities. Again, that trend continued into 2025. We saw that at the beginning of this year as well. So a lot of very interesting behavior there from the APT groups themselves. And another interesting thing about the Chinese nexus threat, I suppose, is DeepSeek. Not really particularly to do with cybersecurity in general, but certainly a challenge to the US authority on AI and leadership there. At the beginning of this year, it was significantly impacting share prices and a pretty big disruption there. So I think that's also interesting to see how many people answered the poll in the use of generative AI, and it's certainly a trend that we're going to keep a very close eye on. I think I'll also just quickly mention the North Korean threat as well. This week, there's been a lot of news about the Lazarus Group, especially as it pertains to breaches of cryptocurrency exchanges and Tumblr services and things like that. That's certainly very interesting. I think that the focus of our work last year was especially around the toddler shark malware, which we discovered exploiting vulnerabilities in Screen Connect, those CVE 2024-1708 and 1709. Those vulnerabilities responsibly disclosed by a Kroll SOC analyst, but quickly led to an end-day vulnerability being dropped on the internet, and a trivial vulnerability to exploit, which the North Korean threat actors quickly used to attack a very large number of victims there. So again, interesting to see the ways that the different threat groups tend to operate. Laurie, I know that you've been tracking some Iranian threat groups as well. I'll pass back to you to discuss those.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about Russia and Iranian actors. I do want to kind of pivot off of what you mentioned with North Korean IT workers, because that is a really interesting one where I think AI is going to play into threats like that with employee impersonation. I saw something just this morning kind of going around LinkedIn, and it was a video of kind of like a split screen of someone interviewing a candidate. And they suspected that the candidate was using AI to basically deepfake the interview. And the interviewer started saying, once they suspected, they started saying, "Put your hand up." So they were basically asking them to do like an authentic movement. And when the video couldn't do it, it was kind of, okay, this is likely a deep fake. But I'm not sure if that was a simulation or not, but it was just kind of interesting in how sophisticated some of these deep fakes have become. When it comes to Russia, there were, both with Russia and Iranian actors in the last year, there was some targeting related to the 2024 US election. We also saw Russian actors targeting some of the US technology firms. And when it comes to Iranian actors, one of the, reports that I thought was really interesting that came out of 2024 was a report connecting Iranian nation state actors to being initial access brokers in the ransomware ecosphere. And those would be the actors that, are selling those credentials. So those Iranian actors are very good at kind of brute forcing, collecting those credentials for VPNs or RDPs, and then they, sell them online. So that was a really interesting report that came out in, I think it was Q3 of 2024. But that's also a good segue to talk about ransomware. Black Hat was one of the big stories, Black Hat slash Alpha V. Certainly at the beginning of 2024, they were very active. They were doing some big game hunting, so going after some very notable companies, including financial institutions. They were the ones responsible for the Change Healthcare event, and that was a pretty large event, particularly here in the US, that had a lot of downstream impact. So it kind of highlighted the third-party interdependencies that we have related to ransomware. And Black Hat ended up kind of exiting shortly after that. And around the same time, another group was actually disrupted by law enforcement. And that was Lockbit, which you can see here. This is, showing the seizure of their site. This actually did, both of these had a really big impact on the ransomware landscape in 2024. Although in the first half of the year, we were seeing a lot of ransomware activity, we started to see much less so in the kind of back half of the year, as we saw the ripple effects from this enforcement actions. Now, I will say that by the end of 2024, we were actually seeing more activity. We were seeing an increase in ransomware activity, though. But I also want to talk, I know, George, I also know that you are, looking at related to credentials and ransomware. I know you guys have been following a lot with information stealers. If maybe you want to talk about what you were seeing with that in 2024.
Yeah, thanks, Laurie. I'm just going to come out and say it. 2024 is the year of the Infostealer. It's been absolutely incredible to watch. I've certainly never seen really anything quite like it, especially in the second half of 2024. Information stealers were rife. It's a really interesting ecosystem that we're certainly going to cover later on in the webinar as well. But it's driving an incredible amount of development within the Infostealer ecosphere there. Lots of sort of jostling for the favored Infostealer. How easy can they be to deploy? The cuts that the operators get from the sale of the logs and the stolen credentials. I don't think that's going to slow down in 2025 at all, to be honest. And if the last few weeks of our monitoring are anything to go by, is looking to be actually picking up again pretty significantly as well.